Okay, here are your notes for section 5.5. We are going to solve absolute value equations. Take the time to write that down, solve absolute value equations. So we're going to be back to equal signs now. Equal signs instead of inequalities. Reminder about absolute value, that when you are measuring the absolute value of something, you're actually measuring its distance, how far away it is from something. We'll start with just the distance from 0, but then we also need to know the distance maybe from other numbers we're going to be working on. Let me remind you, you've seen absolute value before, you've worked with it, it's the two straight bars, and it basically said if your number was -3, -3 is -3, but if you ask for the absolute value of -3, then your answer is +3. But if they ask you for the absolute value of +3, that also is still +3. You don't change this one to a negative. Because absolute value is measuring distance, how far away it is. So the distance for -3, even if you go 3 steps, if you go 3 steps this direction, or if you go 3 steps this direction, the distance is still 3 steps. So that's why that comes out positive. We'll give you some examples of some that we'll start out really simple, probably too simple, that they say, what about if you have the absolute value of x, and you know the answer is 7. You know the answer is 7, but you want to know what does that x equal? And that x is going to equal either 7 or -7. It could be either one of them. Let's take a look at that on a number line. Here's 0. If you want your distance, we'll say that's called distance because it's the absolute value. You want your distance to be 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, there's your answer. But they didn't say which direction. It doesn't matter. You could actually also go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, -7. Either way, if you count this distance, it's 7 units. So we have to give 2 answers for absolute value. What if you went to the right? And what if you went to the left? Notice when you answer it, now the absolute values our bars are gone. You're just saying this is what x equals. And all equations, as you know, start and end as an equation. You have to put x equals in front of it. So if you had absolute value of x equals 15, you'd say, all right, I can either go 15 to the right or 15 to the left. So x is going to equal either 15 or -15. Whoops, why did I write 7? 15 or -15. We're not going to do a whole assignment where they're as easy as that. We're going to actually solve some equation. So now our distance isn't from 0. We're not measuring from 0 anymore. Remember when you measure distance, you have to subtract to find distance. If a running back was at the 10-yard line and he ran to the 40-yard line, his distance is 40 minus 10, or 30 yards. So how do you find distance? You subtract. Now we're going to say what number, when you measure its distance from 3, ends up being 8 units from 3. So we're going to do it mathematically first, but then I'll show you it on a graph. You know that x minus 3 could be 8. But it could also be -8 because it says this distance is 8. You don't know if you went 8 to the right or did you go 8 to the left. You have to solve both equations. And now you're like, oh, great. You give us one problem and you have to do it twice every time. Yep, you have to do it twice. And watch how I do this. First one, at least I'm giving you one-step easy problems. X minus 3 equals 8. You add 3 to both sides. X equals 11. And you can't just say, oh, x is 11, so the other x must be -11. That doesn't work like that. Not when you're measuring a distance from 3. So then you come over here and you solve this one also, +3 + 3. And whatever you do to one equation, you're going to also do over here. If it's +3 + 3, it'll be +3 + 3. Nothing changes. And you get x equals -5. So right now you might be thinking, like, how does that work? How are the numbers so different from +11 to -5? Let's take a look at it on a number line. And yeah, you could draw this if you wanted to. We wanted to know how far x is away from 3, that it's a distance of 8. Where did you start? Well, if I started at 11 and I counted, or I start at 3 and I count 8 spaces to the right, I would go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But if I started from 3 and I went 8 spaces to the left, that would be 2, 1, 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Both of those are 8 spaces away from the number 3, but this one went 8 to the right, this one went 8 to the left. So notice if you add 8 to the number 3, you get 11. If you subtract 8 from the number 3, you get -5. All right, let's set up another one. We're finding the distance, absolute value of b minus 7 equals 9. So we know the distance from 7, we're either going 9 to the right of 7 or 9 to the left of 7. And rather than do these in our head, we're going to set them up. That b minus 7 could equal 9, or b minus 7 could also equal -9. I'm going to do the math all the way across this time. Plus 7, plus 7, plus 7, plus 7. Why not? Then you don't really even have to think. You just do the same thing over and over. Your -7 and your +7s cancel. You're left with b equals 16 on this side, and b equals -2 on this side. So if I took the number 7 and I added 9 spaces to it, I would go up to 16. If I took the number 7 and subtracted 9 spaces, I would end up down 2. And I'm not going to have you graph every one, it's just a visual, but you do have to have both answers. Try this one on your own. Set it up, solve it, pause it, and then when you come back, you can check it and see if it's the same as mine. Okay, you're back. Check it. Make sure you got A is 6 and A is -18. And know that you can take these numbers and plug them back in and check your answer. What is 6 plus 6? 12. The absolute value of 12 is 12. What is -18 plus 6? -18 plus 6 is -12. But when you take the absolute value of -12, you get +12. So you can check your answers just like you can on any equations. Get perfect scores and all it. We'll do one more. It's a 2-step solving, but we're okay with that. We can do 2-step solving. Set it up as 2p minus 3 equals 7, and 2p minus 3 equals -7. Add 3 to both sides, and I'm going to do that all the way across. Why not? You're left with 2p equals 10, and 2p equals -4. Divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. You might as well only think once instead of twice. P equals 5, or p equals -2. And I'm okay if you write it like that with a comma also. We have been writing it twice, but a comma is okay too. That's it. That's what you're working on in your assignment. Every problem has 2 answers, 2 problems you have to solve. Good luck.